It was a crisp autumn evening in downtown Los Angeles. Keanu Reeves, known for his humility despite his superstardom, strolled home from a low-key charity event. The city's usual bustle was softened by the golden hues of the sunset, but a peculiar noise caught his attention, a faint whimper, almost swallowed by the sound of passing cars. Pausing on the sidewalk, Keanu looked around, his sharp eyes scanning the dim alleyways and parked cars. The whimper came again, louder this time, and it led him to a scruffy, mud-covered puppy trembling behind a dumpster. The puppy, barely bigger than a loaf of bread, stared up at him with wide, fearful eyes. Keanu knelt, extending a hand slowly. "Hey, buddy," he murmured in his famously gentle tone. "What are you doing out here all alone?" The dog took a hesitant step forward, then stopped, its thin body quivering. Keanu could see the outline of its ribs beneath its filthy fur. His heart clenched. Without thinking twice, he shrugged off his jacket and gently wrapped the little creature in it. The puppy shivered but allowed itself to be lifted. Keanu smiled softly. "Don't worry, you're safe now." As he carried the dog toward his motorcycle, he was unaware that someone, or something, was watching. Back at the villa. Keanu's secluded villa was a stark contrast to the grimy streets of Los Angeles. The puppy, now clean after a gentle bath, looked entirely different. Its fur was a patchwork of white and brown, and its eyes were the kind that seemed to hold the wisdom of something far older than its tiny frame. Maria, Keanu's housekeeper, fussed over the puppy. "Mr. Reeves," she said, her voice a mix of concern and amusement, "you've brought home quite the guest." Keanu chuckled. "It's just until we figure out where it belongs, or if it belongs anywhere at all." He placed a soft blanket in front of the roaring fireplace and set the puppy down gently. The dog immediately curled into a tight ball, its exhaustion overtaking its fear. Keanu watched for a moment, then turned his attention to the internet, determined to post about the stray and find its owner. But as the hours turned into night, Keanu couldn't shake the feeling that there was something unique about this puppy. That night, Keanu had just dozed off when a faint sound stirred him awake. It wasn't the typical creak of his old house or the distant hum of the city. It was a bark, a single, sharp yip that carried a strange urgency. He hurried downstairs to find the puppy standing at the front door, its fur bristled, its eyes fixed on something beyond the glass. "What is it?" Keanu asked, crouching beside the pup. Before he could open the door, a shadow moved across the driveway. Keanu's instincts, honed from years of action movies and cautious living, kicked in. He moved quickly, ensuring the house was secure, and called security. The shadow vanished as suddenly as it appeared, but Keanu couldn't shake the eerie feeling that the puppy's arrival and this disturbance were connected. "Looks like you're not just any stray," he muttered to the dog, which had calmed and now leaned against his leg, its trust in him unshaken. As dawn approached, Keanu made a decision: this wasn't just a rescue. This little dog had come into his life for a reason. Keanu Reeves wasn't the type to ignore a gut feeling. The puppy's arrival, the mysterious shadow, and the inexplicable bark, it all felt like the opening scene of one of his movies. But this wasn't fiction. The morning sun streamed through the villa's large windows, casting a warm glow on the room where the puppy now slept peacefully. Despite the calm exterior, Keanu's mind raced. Maria entered, carrying a tray of breakfast and a steaming cup of coffee. "You didn't sleep much, did you?" she asked, her motherly concern evident. Keanu smiled faintly. "Not really. There's something about that little guy. I can't shake the feeling he's here for more than a good meal and a warm blanket." Maria chuckled softly as she glanced at the dog. "Maybe he just needs you as much as you need him. Animals have a way of finding the people who can save them." Keanu nodded thoughtfully but said nothing. The note. Later that morning, as Keanu carried the puppy out into the backyard for some fresh air, he noticed something unusual. Tucked beneath the shrubs near his gate was a crumpled piece of paper. Setting the puppy down, he unfolded the note. The words, hastily scribbled in shaky handwriting, made his blood run cold. Take care of him. He's the last one. They're coming for us all. Keanu scanned the street beyond the gate, but it was empty. Whoever had left the note was long gone. He looked down at the puppy, which wagged its tail innocently, its mismatched eyes gleaming in the sunlight. What's your story, little one? He murmured, kneeling to scratch behind its ears. A call for help. The note confirmed Keanu's suspicion, this wasn't just a lost dog. Someone had gone to great lengths to leave it with him, and the cryptic message suggested danger. He pulled out his phone and dialed Robbie, his old friend from the NYPD. Keanu? Twice in 1 week. This can't be good, Robbie joked as he answered. Keanu wasted no time. I need you to run a check on something for me. Someone left a note at my gate. It's about a dog, a puppy I found last night. A dog? Robbie sounded skeptical. You sure this isn't just some fan prank? You know how people can get. This feels different, Robbie. Please, just humor me. After a pause, Robbie relented. Send me a picture of the note. I'll see what I can dig up. The marking. As Keanu ended the call, he noticed something else peculiar about the puppy. Beneath its patchy fur, near its left shoulder, was a faint marking. At first glance, it looked like a natural pattern in its fur, but upon closer inspection, it was clear that the shape was deliberate, a small, circular emblem with a star in the center. Where did you come from? Keanu whispered. The puppy tilted its head, as if pondering the question, then let out a soft bark. Keanu chuckled despite the unease bubbling in his chest. You're full of surprises, aren't you? The stranger returns. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Keanu's security system chimed, motion detected near the gate. Keanu checked the monitor and saw a figure cloaked in a dark hoodie, pacing nervously just outside the villa's perimeter. He hesitated for a moment, then pressed the intercom. Can I help you? The figure froze, then stepped closer to the gate. A young woman's voice crackled through the speaker. You have the puppy. Please, I need to see him. I need to know he's safe. Keanu's heart raced. Who are you? And what's going on? Her voice trembled. There's no time to explain. Please, you have to let me in. They'll come for him if you don't. The next step. Keanu looked down at the puppy, now nestled in his arms, and then back at the monitor. His instincts screamed caution, but something in the woman's voice struck a chord. I'll open the gate, he said finally, but only if you tell me everything. As the gate began to creak open, Keanu had no idea that this decision would plunge him into a world far more dangerous, and extraordinary, than he had ever imagined. Stay tuned for part 3, where the truth about the puppy begins to unravel, and Keanu finds himself in the crosshairs of a shadowy organization. The gate opened with a mechanical groan, and the hooded figure hesitated before stepping inside. The woman's face was pale and drawn, her eyes darting nervously around as if expecting someone, or something, to jump out at her. Keanu stood by the front door, the puppy in his arms. Its tiny body was tense, and it let out a low, almost inaudible growl. Close the gate behind you, Keanu instructed, his voice calm but firm. The woman complied, glancing over her shoulder before hurrying up the driveway. Once inside, Keanu gestured for her to sit in the living room. Start talking, he said, placing the puppy on the couch next to him. The little dog stayed close to his side, watching the woman with wide, cautious eyes. The woman pulled back her hood, revealing tangled dark hair and a gash on her forehead. My name's Elena, she began, her voice trembling. That puppy, he's not just a dog. He's the only one left from a special project, a secret experiment. They'll stop at nothing to get him back. Keanu's eyebrows shot up. Experiment? You're going to have to be a lot more specific. Elena hesitated, her hands wringing the fabric of her hoodie. I worked for a research lab, Canis Genesis. It was supposed to be about advancing veterinary science, improving animal health. But it wasn't. They were creating something unnatural. She glanced at the puppy, her expression softening. This little guy and his siblings, they were engineered. Enhanced. Smarter, stronger, more aware than any dog should be. But the project spiraled out of control. When they realized what they'd created, they decided to terminate them. Keanu frowned. Terminate? You mean? They killed them, Elena said bluntly, her voice breaking. All of them, except him. I couldn't let them destroy him too. So I took him and ran. But they found me. She gestured to the wound on her forehead. I barely escaped. I left him at your gate because I knew they wouldn't dare come after him here. You're famous, powerful. You'd protect him. Keanu was silent, processing the weight of her words. He looked at the puppy, which had curled into his lap, its mismatched eyes fixed on Elena. If what you're saying is true, he said slowly, why didn't you go to the authorities? Elena let out a bitter laugh. The authorities? Canis Genesis is backed by people with deep pockets and connections everywhere. They'd silence me before I could say a word. You're the only chance he has. The proof. Keanu leaned back, his mind racing. You have any proof of this? Because right now, this sounds like a wild conspiracy theory. Elena reached into her hoodie and pulled out a small USB drive. This has everything, documents, videos, even a log of the experiments. I stole it before I ran. But I haven't had time to decrypt it. Keanu took the drive, his expression serious. I'll get this looked at. If you're telling the truth, we need to do more than protect him. We need to expose them. Elena shook her head violently. You don't understand. If they know you're involved, they'll come after you too. These people don't care who they hurt. Keanu gave her a small, grim smile. I've faced a lot of bad guys, Elena. I think I can handle it. The intruders. Before Elena could respond, the villa's security alarm blared. Keanu jumped to his feet, his eyes darting to the monitors. On the screen, 2 black SUVs screeched to a halt outside the gate. Too late, Elena whispered, her face pale. Keanu's jaw tightened. Maria, get the safe room ready, he called over his shoulder. Maria appeared instantly, her calm demeanor masking the tension in her eyes. This way, she said, ushering Elena and the puppy toward a hidden door in the hallway. Keanu followed, but as they reached the safe room, he stopped. Stay here, he said, his tone leaving no room for argument. What are you doing? Elena demanded. Stalling, Keanu replied, closing the door behind her. The confrontation. Keanu stepped into the foyer just as the front door rattled. A calm, authoritative voice called out, Mr. Reeves, we just want to talk. Open the door, and no one gets hurt. Keanu smirked to himself. They always say that, he muttered before unlocking the door and pulling it open. 4 men in black suits stood on the steps, their expressions cold and calculating. The man in front smiled thinly. Mr. Reeves, we believe you have something that doesn't belong to you. Keanu crossed his arms, his stance relaxed but ready. Funny. I don't remember stealing anything. The man's smile didn't waver. A dog. A very special dog. Hand it over, and we'll leave quietly. Keanu's eyes narrowed. And what happens to the dog if I do? That's not your concern. Keanu shook his head. Yeah, see, I'm not a fan of that answer. So why don't you turn around and leave before this gets ugly? The man's smile faded. I was hoping you'd cooperate, Mr. Reeves. But I see we'll have to do this the hard way. Stay tuned for part 4, where Keanu's quick thinking and action skills are put to the ultimate test as he faces off against a team of dangerous operatives. Keanu Reeves stood his ground, his calm demeanor masking the storm brewing inside. The four men in black suits exchanged looks, their body language shifting subtly. They were prepared for resistance. "You have no idea what you're involved in," the leader said coldly, signaling his team with a slight nod. Keanu's eyes darted around, assessing his environment. The foyer's expansive design offered limited cover but plenty of room to maneuver, a crucial detail. Years of action training surged to the forefront of his mind. "Let's find out together," he said with a dry smirk. The men advanced. The first strike. The leader lunged first, aiming to grab Keanu's arm. Keanu sidestepped, his reflexes razor-sharp, and used the man's momentum to send him crashing into a decorative table. The shattering wood echoed through the house. The second attacker swung wildly, but Keanu ducked low, driving his shoulder into the man's midsection. With a practiced twist, he threw the assailant over his hip and onto the marble floor. 2 down, 2 to go. The backup plan. The remaining operatives drew weapons, compact stun batons crackling ominously. Keanu backed away, his mind racing. He wasn't armed, and the odds were shifting out of his favor. "Give it up, Reeves," one of them snarled. "You're just an actor." Keanu chuckled despite the tension. "You'd be surprised how much we train for these roles." One attacker lunged, swinging his baton in a sharp arc. Keanu dodged, grabbing a floor lamp and using it as a makeshift staff. Sparks flew as the baton struck the lamp, but Keanu retaliated with a sharp jab to the man's chest, sending him staggering. The final operative moved in, feinting left before striking from the right. Keanu parried the blow with the lamp and countered with a spinning kick, knocking the baton from the man's hand. The hidden threat. Panting slightly, Keanu surveyed the room. The attackers were down but not out, groaning, clutching injuries, and glaring at him with venom in their eyes. Before Keanu could catch his breath, a cold voice came from behind him. "Impressive. But I think it's time to end this." Keanu turned slowly. A fifth figure had entered the villa, this one exuding an aura of authority. Unlike the others, he carried a sleek, silenced pistol. "Hand over the dog," the newcomer ordered, his tone icy. "Or I promise you'll regret it." Keanu's jaw tightened. The safe room was secure, but if the intruders searched the house and found Elena or the puppy, the situation could spiral out of control. "Why is this dog so important to you?" Keanu asked, his voice steady despite the tension. The man's smile was thin. "Let's just say it's worth more than your life, Mr. Reeves. Now, enough stalling." Elena's courage. From the corner of his eye, Keanu spotted movement, a faint shadow along the hallway wall. It was Elena, clutching an ornate vase she must have grabbed in her panic. She crept closer, her breathing shallow but determined. Keanu held the intruder's gaze, subtly shifting his weight to draw the man's attention. "What's your name?" he asked. The man frowned. "Excuse me?" "You're pretty calm for a guy breaking into someone's home," Keanu continued conversationally. "I figured you'd at least have the decency to introduce yourself." The man's grip on the pistol tightened. "I'm the one holding the gun. That's all you need to know." "Good talk," Keanu said, just as Elena swung the vase with all her strength. The ceramic shattered against the man's head, and he crumpled to the floor. The next step. Keanu quickly disarmed the man, tossing the gun out of reach. Elena stood frozen, her chest heaving as adrenaline coursed through her. I couldn't just stay hidden," she stammered. Keanu placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You did great." Maria appeared from the hallway, holding the puppy close to her chest. "The safe room is still secure, but we can't stay here, Mr. Reeves. More could be coming." Keanu nodded grimly. "You're right. We need to move. Grab anything essential and get ready to leave. As Maria hurried off, Keanu turned to Elena. Do you have anywhere safe to go? She shook her head. Not anymore. They'll find me wherever I run. Then you're staying with me, Keanu said firmly. We'll figure this out together. The puppy let out a soft bark, as if agreeing with the plan. The tension in Keanu Reeves' villa was palpable as he, Elena, Maria, and the extraordinary little puppy prepared to leave. The broken furniture and groaning attackers left behind were evidence enough that staying wasn't an option. Keanu handed Maria a small duffel bag filled with essentials. You'll drive Elena and the puppy in the SUV. I'll follow on my bike to draw attention if we're being tailed. Maria nodded, her expression calm despite the gravity of the situation. The puppy, sensing the urgency, snuggled into Elena's arms, its mismatched eyes glinting with intelligence. Where are we going? Elena asked. Keanu zipped up his jacket, grabbing a set of keys. I have a friend, Robbie, from the NYPD. He's already working on something for me. We're going to rendezvous with him. The breakout. The group exited the villa cautiously. Keanu scanned the area, his sharp eyes catching the faint glint of a security camera mounted on one of the black SUVs the attackers had arrived in. They're still watching, Keanu murmured to himself. He opened the garage and wheeled out his motorcycle. The rumble of the engine broke the silence, and as Maria and Elena climbed into the SUV, Keanu signaled for them to go. I'll be right behind you, he said, revving the bike. Maria pulled out of the driveway, and Keanu followed a few moments later, his sharp focus on the rearview mirrors. The streets of Los Angeles were eerily quiet for this time of night, the city's glow casting long shadows on the pavement. The chase. It didn't take long for the SUVs to reappear, their headlights piercing the night as they closed in on the escaping group. They're following us. Elena exclaimed, glancing nervously out the back window. Keanu's voice crackled through the SUV's speakerphone. Maria, take the next left. I'll slow them down. No. Elena protested. You can't face them alone. But Keanu was already moving. He twisted the throttle, his motorcycle roaring as he veered into the path of the pursuing vehicles. The SUVs swerved to avoid him, their engines roaring in frustration. Keanu weaved through traffic effortlessly, his years of riding stunts on film sets serving him well. The lead SUV attempted to ram him, but Keanu leaned low, narrowly avoiding the impact. The ambush. As Keanu led the pursuers farther from the SUV, he realized too late that the street ahead was blocked by another black vehicle. The attackers had anticipated his move. Keanu skidded to a halt, his boots scraping against the asphalt. The SUVs boxed him in, their doors swinging open as armed men emerged. The leader from earlier, his head bandaged where Elena had struck him, stepped forward with a smug grin. You put up a good fight, Reeves. But this ends now. Keanu dismounted slowly, raising his hands. What is it with you guys and dramatic speeches, he quipped. The leader's smile faltered, but before he could respond, the sound of screeching tires filled the air. Keanu glanced over his shoulder just in time to see Maria's SUV barreling toward them. The cavalry. Get down. Elena shouted from the passenger seat. Keanu dove to the ground as Maria's SUV clipped one of the attackers, scattering the group. The vehicle skidded to a stop, and Elena threw open the door. Keanu, get in, she yelled, clutching the puppy tightly. Keanu didn't hesitate. He sprinted to the SUV, climbing into the back as Maria floored the accelerator. The tires screeched, and the SUV surged forward, leaving the dazed attackers in its wake. The escape. As the SUV sped through the city streets, Keanu caught his breath, his mind racing. The attackers weren't just after the puppy, they were determined to eliminate anyone standing in their way. We can't keep running like this, Elena said, her voice shaky. They won't stop. Keanu nodded, his jaw set. We won't run. We'll make our stand. But first, we need a plan, and we need to know exactly what we're dealing with. He glanced at the puppy, its intelligent eyes meeting his. You've got secrets, little guy, he murmured. It's time we uncovered them. The road ahead. With the attackers temporarily shaken off their trail, Maria drove toward a secure location Keanu had arranged, a small, unmarked warehouse on the outskirts of the city, one of several properties he kept for emergencies. As they approached, Keanu leaned forward. We'll stay here for the night. Tomorrow, we figure out what's on that USB drive and take the fight to them. Elena nodded, her fear giving way to determination. I'll help in any way I can. We owe you everything. Keanu shook his head. This isn't about owing me. It's about doing what's right, for you, for the puppy, and for everyone else these people have hurt. The unmarked warehouse on the outskirts of Los Angeles was the perfect refuge, hidden, secure, and equipped with just enough resources for a makeshift command center. As Maria parked the SUV inside, Keanu Reeves wasted no time. He retrieved the USB drive from Elena and booted up a laptop, his movements precise and purposeful. Elena paced nervously, the puppy cradled in her arms. The little dog had finally relaxed, its mismatched eyes blinking drowsily. Maria, ever the calm presence, set about preparing some food, her intuition telling her everyone would need their strength for what was to come. Keanu inserted the USB drive and opened the files. The screen flickered to life, revealing folder after folder labeled with cryptic names, Project Aegis, Phase Omega, Subject Profiles. What exactly are we looking at here? Keanu asked, his gaze sharp. Elena leaned over his shoulder, her face pale. This is everything. Proof of what Canis Genesis has been doing. It's all here, the experiments, the funding sources, the clients. Keanu clicked on a video file labeled Subject 9, Final Trial. The screen filled with grainy footage of a sterile laboratory. The experiment. The video began with a close-up of a cage containing a litter of puppies. A voice, clinical and detached, narrated, Subject 9 and its siblings demonstrate enhanced cognitive abilities. Problem-solving tests have yielded results 5 times faster than baseline expectations for canine intelligence. The footage shifted to a maze, where the puppies navigated complex routes with unnerving precision. The camera zoomed in on the smallest of the group, the puppy now nestled in Elena's arms. This one, the voice continued, has shown exceptional promise. If successful, these enhancements could revolutionize animal behavior training, surveillance, and even combat applications. Elena flinched at the words, holding the puppy tighter. They wanted to use them as tools. Weapons. That's why they killed the others, they were considered failures. Keanu's expression darkened. But he survived. Why? Elena hesitated. Because he's different. Smarter than the rest. They called him the prototype for something bigger. The threat. Keanu opened another folder, labeled Financial Reports. The documents revealed payments from shadowy organizations, including private security firms and anonymous government contractors. This isn't just a science project, Keanu said grimly. This is a business. And a dangerous one. As he scrolled through the files, he found a list of clients, one of which caught his attention. Cronies Corporation, he read aloud. I know that name. They're involved in defense contracts and other less-than-savory activities. Elena nodded. They're one of Canis Genesis's biggest backers. If they find out we have this, they'll do more than send thugs, Keanu finished for her. They'll come after all of us with everything they've got. The revelation. Just as Keanu was about to close the files, Maria called out, Mr. Reeves, you need to see this. She held up the puppy's paw, revealing a faint, metallic sheen beneath the fur. I thought it was dirt, but it's something else. Keanu and Elena examined the paw closely. Embedded just beneath the skin was a tiny, hexagonal chip. It's a tracker, Elena said, her voice trembling. That's how they've been following him. Keanu's jaw tightened. Can you remove it? Elena hesitated. I think so. But we need to be careful. If it's damaged, it could send out a signal that alerts them immediately. The surgery. The warehouse's break room became an impromptu operating theater. Under Elena's guidance, Maria sterilized the area while Keanu held the puppy steady. You're a brave little guy, Keanu murmured as the puppy whimpered softly. Elena worked quickly, her hands steady despite the pressure. With a small incision and a pair of tweezers, she extracted the chip, placing it carefully in a lead-lined box Keanu had found among the warehouse's supplies. It's done, Elena said, exhaling shakily. He's free of it. Maria wrapped the puppy's paw in a soft bandage, stroking its head soothingly. You're safe now, she whispered. The next step. Keanu leaned against the wall, his mind racing. We have the files, the proof, and now the chip. But we're still sitting ducks unless we act fast. Elena nodded. We need to get this information to someone who can actually take them down. Someone who can make it public before they have a chance to cover it up. Keanu's gaze hardened. I know just the person. But it's going to take a lot to convince her, and we'll have to outmaneuver cronies along the way. The warehouse was quiet, save for the occasional soft whimper from the puppy as it rested in Maria's lap. Keanu Reeves paced the room, his sharp mind piecing together the next steps. The USB drive held damning evidence, but getting it to the right hands without tipping off their enemies was no small task. Elena sat across the table, her eyes dark with worry. Who's this person you think can help? She asked, breaking the tense silence. Her name is Jessica Tran, Keanu replied. She's an investigative journalist, fearless and relentless. If anyone can blow the lid off Canis Genesis and their backers, it's her. Do you trust her? Elena pressed. Keanu stopped pacing and met her gaze. I do. But trust alone isn't enough. We have to be smart about this. Cronies will stop at nothing to silence us before this gets out. The plan. Keanu spread out a map of Los Angeles on the table, marking several locations. We'll meet Jessica at a safe house downtown. It's nondescript, secure, and easy to defend if things go south. Elena leaned over the map. How do we get there without being followed? Keanu tapped one of the marked points. We'll split up. Maria, you'll take the puppy and drive the SUV to this location, a decoy route. Elena and I will take my motorcycle and head to the safe house. If Cronies is watching, they'll have a harder time tracking both of us. Maria nodded, her expression calm and resolute. I'll keep him safe, she said, stroking the puppy's soft fur. The decoy drive. As Maria's SUV pulled out of the warehouse, Keanu and Elena watched from the shadows, waiting until it disappeared into the night. Then, with the USB drive safely stashed in Keanu's jacket, they mounted his motorcycle and sped off in the opposite direction. The city lights blurred as they wove through side streets and alleys, avoiding main roads where cameras and trackers could spot them. The tension in the air was palpable, every sound amplified by the possibility of pursuit. An unseen enemy. They were nearing the safe house when Elena stiffened, her arms tightening around Keanu's waist. Keanu, she said urgently, we're being followed. Keanu glanced in the side mirror and saw a pair of motorcycles weaving through traffic behind them. Hold on, he said, his voice calm despite the surge of adrenaline. He accelerated, taking a sharp turn down a narrow alley. The tires screeched as they barely avoided a stack of crates. The pursuing bikes followed, their engines roaring. Elena clung tightly to Keanu as he maneuvered through the labyrinth of streets, his skills as a rider keeping them one step ahead. But the pursuers were relentless, gaining ground with every turn. The betrayal. Finally, Keanu pulled into an abandoned parking garage, the sound of the pursuing bikes echoing through the empty space. He stopped and dismounted, motioning for Elena to take cover. The riders approached slowly, their faces hidden beneath dark helmets. One of them dismounted and removed their helmet, revealing a familiar face. "Elena," the man said coldly. Elena gasped, her face draining of color. "Marcus?" Keanu's eyes narrowed. "Friend of yours?" Marcus ignored him, his gaze fixed on Elena. "You should have stayed out of this. You were warned." Elena took a shaky step forward. "You were part of this? You knew what they were doing to those dogs?" Marcus's expression hardened. "You don't understand. This project, it's bigger than you, than me. Do you have any idea what's at stake?" Keanu stepped between them, his voice like steel. "I don't care what's at stake. You've hurt innocent lives, and you're not getting away with it." The escape. Before Marcus could respond, his companion drew a weapon, a sleek, silenced pistol. "Move aside, Reeves," Marcus said, his voice laced with regret. "This isn't about you." Keanu's response was a swift kick, knocking the gun out of the attacker's hand. The weapon skidded across the concrete floor, and chaos erupted. Elena dove behind a car as Marcus lunged at Keanu. The two men clashed, their movements sharp and precise, years of training evident in every strike encounter. Meanwhile, Elena scrambled for the discarded pistol. She grabbed it just as Marcus's companion lunged at her. Without thinking, she fired, the shot echoing through the parking garage. The attacker crumpled to the ground, and Marcus froze. His hesitation gave Keanu the opening he needed. With a powerful strike, he sent Marcus sprawling. Keanu grabbed Elena's hand. "We have to go. Now." They mounted the motorcycle and sped out of the garage, leaving Marcus and his fallen ally behind. The safe house. Breathless and shaken, they finally reached the safe house. Jessica Tran was waiting for them, her sharp eyes scanning the street as they approached. "You're late," she said, her tone clipped. Keanu handed her the USB drive. "We ran into trouble. This has everything you need to expose Canis Genesis." Jessica nodded, pocketing the drive. "I'll get this out to the world, but you should prepare yourselves. Once this story breaks, it's going to get worse before it gets better." Keanu glanced at Elena, her face pale but resolute. "We'll be ready," he said. Jessica Tran was not one to waste time. The moment she received the USB drive, she plugged it into her laptop and began scanning the files. Keanu Reeves and Elena watched in tense silence as the journalist's expression shifted from curiosity to shock and finally to grim determination. "This is worse than I thought," Jessica muttered, her fingers flying over the keyboard. "Enhanced animals, illegal experiments, private funding from shadow corporations. This isn't just a scandal, it's a global operation." Keanu leaned forward. "Can you publish it? Will people listen?" Jessica looked up, her gaze steely. "Oh, they'll listen. But once this goes live, the people behind Cronies won't just come after me. They'll come after all of us." Keanu's jaw tightened. "Let them try." The upload. Jessica worked quickly, encrypting the files and drafting an exposé that detailed everything: Canis Genesis's illegal activities, Cronies' involvement, and the fate of the enhanced puppies. She added video evidence, financial records, and personal testimonies from whistleblowers, including Elena's account. "It's ready," Jessica said after what felt like an eternity. "I'm sending it to my editor, and once it's live, it'll go viral. This story is too big to suppress." Elena exhaled shakily. "That's it? We're just putting it out there." Jessica gave her a small, reassuring smile. "This isn't just some tabloid piece. It'll reach lawmakers, activists, and investigative bodies worldwide. They won't be able to ignore it. The reaction. Within hours, the exposé hit major news outlets. Headlines blared across screens and social media. Illegal genetic experimentation exposed. Cronies Corporation's dark secret, enhanced animals as weapons. Canis Genesis whistleblower speaks out. The response was immediate and explosive. Protesters gathered outside Cronies headquarters, demanding justice. Lawmakers called for investigations. Anonymous hackers leaked additional documents, corroborating the story. But while the public rallied, Keanu knew that Cronies wouldn't back down without a fight. The retaliation. That night, the safe house became a war zone. It started with a faint hum, drones circling the perimeter. Keanu spotted them first, his years of on-set training with tactical teams giving him an edge. "They're here," he said, pulling Elena and Jessica away from the windows. The first explosion rocked the building, shattering glass and sending debris flying. "Move!" Keanu shouted, grabbing the puppy from Maria's arms as the group scrambled for cover. Armed operatives stormed the building, their movements precise and coordinated. Keanu led the group through a side exit, using the chaos to their advantage. The standoff. In the alley behind the safe house, they were cornered. Operatives closed in from both sides, their weapons trained on the group. "Hand over the dog," one of them ordered, his voice cold and commanding. Keanu stepped forward, the puppy tucked securely in his jacket. "You really think I'm just going to give him up?" The man smirked. "You're outnumbered and outgunned, Mr. Reeves. Don't make this harder than it has to be." Keanu's lips curled into a faint smile. "I've faced worse odds." As if on cue, headlights flooded the alley. A van screeched to a halt, and armed figures emerged, Jessica's contacts from a local activist group. "You're not the only ones who can play dirty," Jessica said, stepping forward with her hands raised. The operatives hesitated, their confidence wavering. In the confusion, Keanu sprang into action, taking out the nearest attacker with a swift punch. The turning tide. The fight was chaotic but brief. Jessica's allies proved more than capable, forcing the operatives to retreat. By the time the dust settled, the alley was eerily quiet, save for the sound of Keanu's heavy breathing. "That was close," Elena said, her voice shaking. Keanu cradled the puppy, its tiny body trembling. "Too close." The next step. With the safe house compromised, the group relocated to another secure location provided by Jessica's network. But Keanu knew they couldn't stay on the defensive forever. "We need to take the fight to them," he said, his voice resolute. "We've exposed their operation, but we haven't stopped them." Jessica nodded. "If we can find their main facility, the heart of their operations, we might be able to shut this down for good." Elena spoke up, her voice hesitant but determined. "I know where it is. It's risky, but I can get us inside." Keanu looked at her, his gaze steady. "Then that's where we're going." The team's destination was clear, Cronies Corporation's main facility, a sprawling complex hidden deep in the industrial outskirts of the city. Elena had worked there once, a cog in the machine that had created the extraordinary puppy now nestled in Keanu Reeves' arms. Now, she would help tear it all down. The group huddled in the dimly lit safe house, a map of the facility spread across the table. Keanu studied it intently while Jessica coordinated with her network, ensuring backup was ready at a moment's notice. "Security is tight," Elena said, pointing to a heavily marked section of the map. "This is where they keep their most sensitive projects, the lab, the data servers, and likely any remaining evidence. If we can get in there and extract the data, we'll cripple them." Keanu nodded. "What about their defenses?" Elena hesitated. "Armed guards, biometric scanners, surveillance drones, it's no joke. But I know their shift schedules and blind spots. If we're quick, we can slip in and out before they know what's happening." Jessica looked skeptical. You're forgetting one thing, they know we're coming. After the exposé, they'll be expecting retaliation. That's why we have to act now, Keanu said firmly. We can't give them time to cover their tracks. The approach. The team departed under the cover of night, traveling in an unmarked van provided by Jessica's allies. Keanu sat in the back, his hand resting on the puppy's head. Its mismatched eyes glinted in the faint light, as if sensing the danger ahead. Maria, behind the wheel, glanced in the rearview mirror. This isn't exactly how I thought I'd spend my week, she said with a nervous chuckle. Keanu smirked. Yeah, me neither. As they neared the facility, Elena handed out earpieces and small devices. These disrupt the biometric scanners for a few seconds. It's not much, but it'll give us a window to bypass them. Keanu took the device, slipping it into his jacket. Let's make it count. The infiltration. The facility loomed ahead, a fortress of steel and glass. Security drones hovered overhead, their red lights scanning the perimeter. Elena led the group to a hidden service entrance, using her old access codes to disable the first layer of security. So far, so good, she whispered. They moved quickly through the dimly lit corridors, avoiding patrols and cameras. Keanu's sharp instincts and Elena's insider knowledge kept them one step ahead. Finally, they reached the central lab, a cold, sterile room filled with rows of servers and containment units. This is it, Elena said, her voice barely above a whisper. The discovery. As Jessica began downloading data from the servers, Keanu's attention was drawn to one of the containment units. Inside was a cage, similar to the one in the video they had seen earlier. But this time, it wasn't empty. A large dog, its fur marked with the same faint emblem as the puppy, lay motionless inside. Its chest rose and fell slowly, its body scarred from countless experiments. Oh my God, Elena whispered, her hand covering her mouth. That's Subject 7. I thought they terminated all of them. Keanu's fists clenched. We're getting him out of here. The alarm. The quiet was shattered by a deafening alarm. Red lights flashed, and a voice boomed over the intercom, intruders detected. All personnel, initiate lockdown. Jessica, how much longer? Keanu shouted. 2 minutes. Jessica called back, furiously typing. I'm almost done. Guards flooded the corridors, their boots echoing ominously. Keanu grabbed a metal rod from a nearby workstation, bracing for the fight. Elena, get the dog out of that cage, he ordered. Elena worked quickly, overriding the locks as Keanu fended off the first wave of attackers. The guards were well trained, but Keanu's precision and resourcefulness turned the tide. The escape. Jessica slammed the laptop shut. Got it. Let's move. Elena freed Subject 7, who stumbled out of the cage, weak but determined. Keanu scooped up the puppy, motioning for the others to follow. They retraced their steps, but the facility was now a maze of chaos. Guards blocked their path at every turn, forcing Keanu to lead the charge, using whatever he could find as makeshift weapons. Finally, they burst through the service entrance, the cool night air a stark contrast to the sterile confines of the lab. The chase. No sooner had they reached the van than a convoy of black SUVs roared after them. Maria floored the accelerator, weaving through the industrial district as drones buzzed overhead. Keanu leaned out the window, using a discarded piece of metal to knock one of the drones out of the sky. We can't outrun them forever. Elena shouted. Keanu glanced at Jessica. You said your allies were standing by. Call them. Jessica nodded, pulling out her phone. They're a few miles away. Hold them off until then. The cliffhanger. As the van sped toward safety, a massive drone appeared, its lights blinding and its weapons primed. Brace yourselves. Keanu shouted. The van swerved as the drone fired, a deafening explosion ripping through the night. When the dust settled, the van teetered on the edge of a ravine, its passengers clinging to hope, and each other. The van's tires screeched as Maria fought to regain control. The vehicle tilted precariously, the front wheels dangling over the edge of the ravine. Below them, jagged rocks jutted out of a raging river, illuminated by the flickering lights of the massive drone hovering above. "Everyone, get out!" Keanu Reeves shouted, his voice cutting through the chaos. Jessica was the first to react, throwing open the back doors and helping Elena out. Maria followed, cradling the puppy protectively as the group scrambled to safety. Keanu stayed behind, his eyes darting between Subject 7, who was whimpering in the back of the van, and the armed drones closing in. "Go," he yelled to the others. "I'll get him." The leap of faith. The drone above fired another round, the blast shaking the ground and pushing the van even closer to the edge. Keanu sprinted to the back of the van and grabbed Subject 7, who let out a low growl but didn't resist. With the giant dog in his arms, Keanu leapt from the van just as it tipped forward and plunged into the ravine. The sound of twisting metal and shattering glass echoed as the vehicle disappeared into the depths. Keanu hit the ground hard, his body absorbing the impact as he shielded Subject 7. Dazed but determined, he pushed himself up, the dog leaning against him for support. "You okay, big guy?" he muttered. Subject 7 let out a low whine, its eyes full of trust despite the chaos. The ambush. The group regrouped behind a cluster of rocks, but their relief was short-lived. Black SUVs skidded to a halt nearby, and armed operatives poured out, their weapons trained on the team. "Hands up," barked the lead operative, his face obscured by a tactical helmet. "You're not going anywhere." Keanu stepped forward, his body shielding the dogs and his friends. "You're making a mistake," he said, his voice calm but laced with warning. The operative sneered. "The only mistake was thinking you could outsmart us. You're out of options, Reeves." Jessica exchanged a quick glance with Keanu, her hand subtly moving toward her phone. The cavalry arrives. Before the standoff could escalate, the sound of roaring engines filled the air. From the shadows emerged a convoy of vehicles, Jessica's allies. Activists armed with makeshift weapons and shields charged into the fray, catching the operatives off guard. The battlefield erupted into chaos. Keanu took advantage of the distraction, disarming one of the operatives and using his own weapon to disable another. Maria and Elena worked together to protect the dogs, fending off attackers with whatever they could find. Jessica, meanwhile, slipped through the melee, clutching the hard drive with the incriminating data. "We need to get this to safety," she shouted. The mastermind revealed. As the fight raged, a black helicopter descended from the sky. Its spotlight cut through the darkness, illuminating a figure standing in the open side door, a tall man in a tailored suit, his face calm and calculating. "Enough," he shouted, his voice amplified by a speaker. The chaos stilled as everyone turned toward the helicopter. The man stepped onto the ground, flanked by armed guards. His gaze swept over the group before settling on Keanu. "Mr. Reeves," he said smoothly, "we meet at last." Keanu's jaw tightened. "And you are?" The man smiled faintly. "Arthur Voss, CEO of Cronies Corporation. And you've been quite a thorn in my side." Jessica stepped forward, her eyes blazing with defiance. "The world knows what you've done, Voss. It's over." Voss chuckled. "You think a few headlines and protests can stop this? My operation is global. Shutting down one lab means nothing." Keanu's eyes narrowed. "Then why are you here?" "Because," Voss said, his tone turning cold, "you have something I need. Return the dog, and the data, and I might let you live." The sacrifice. Keanu glanced at his team, the injured dogs, and the armed guards closing in. The odds were impossible, but surrendering wasn't an option. "Let me make this clear," Keanu said, stepping forward. You're not getting the dogs. And you're not walking away from this. Voss's smile vanished. So be it. At his signal, his guards raised their weapons, but before they could fire, one of Jessica's allies triggered an explosive device, creating a wall of fire between the groups. Go! Keanu shouted, grabbing Subject 7 and the puppy. The team sprinted toward the waiting convoy as chaos erupted once more. The narrow escape. Bullets whizzed past them as they climbed into the vehicles. Keanu handed the dogs to Maria before jumping into the passenger seat of one of the trucks. Drive, he yelled. The convoy roared to life, speeding away from the flames and gunfire. Voss's helicopter gave chase, its spotlight sweeping over the fleeing vehicles. Keanu grabbed a flare gun from the truck's dashboard. As the helicopter drew closer, he took careful aim and fired. The flare hit its mark, the helicopter's tail rotor erupting in sparks. The aircraft veered wildly before retreating, its engines sputtering. The aftermath. The convoy didn't stop until they reached another safe location, a remote farm owned by one of Jessica's allies. As the group tended to their injuries and secured the dogs, Keanu stood watch, his mind racing. Voss had escaped, but his operation was now in the spotlight. The data they had retrieved would ensure that cronies couldn't operate in the shadows any longer. This isn't over, Jessica said, approaching Keanu. Voss will regroup, and he'll come after us harder than ever. Keanu nodded, his gaze shifting to the puppy, now curled up beside Subject 7. Then we'll be ready. Whatever it takes. The morning dawned on the safe haven, the farm's gentle surroundings a stark contrast to the chaos of the night before. The air was filled with the sounds of chirping birds and the occasional bark from the puppy, now recuperating alongside Subject 7. Keanu Reeves stood on the porch, his sharp eyes scanning the horizon. Though the immediate danger had passed, he knew Arthur Voss and Cronies Corporation wouldn't give up so easily. We can't stay here forever, Jessica said, joining him with a steaming cup of coffee. Voss will be regrouping. He'll want revenge, and he has the resources to strike anywhere. Keanu nodded, his expression resolute. We've been on the defensive for too long. It's time we take the fight to them. The plan. The group gathered in the farmhouse's cozy living room, the atmosphere tense but determined. Jessica unrolled a blueprint of another cronies facility, one even more secure than the lab they had just infiltrated. This, she began, pointing to a heavily fortified section of the map, is cronies' primary headquarters. It's where Voss operates and where the heart of their data network is located. If we can breach this, we can end them for good. Elena looked skeptical. That place is a fortress. Guards, drones, biometric scanners. How are we supposed to get in? Keanu leaned over the map, his finger tracing a hidden maintenance tunnel. We don't go through the front door. We go under it. This tunnel leads directly into their server room. If we get there, we can wipe their system and shut them down permanently. Jessica frowned. That's assuming we can get to the tunnel without being spotted, and that we have the firepower to defend ourselves once we're inside. Keanu gave a small, wry smile. We'll need help. Recruiting the allies. Jessica's activist network mobilized, spreading the word among their contacts. Over the next few days, people began arriving at the farm, hackers, mechanics, medics, and even a few former military operatives who had left the system behind to fight for justice. Among them was Robbie, Keanu's old friend from the NYPD. You really know how to get yourself into trouble, don't you? Robbie said with a grin as he clapped Keanu on the shoulder. Wouldn't be me if I didn't, Keanu replied. The group worked tirelessly, preparing for the mission. The mechanics outfitted their vehicles with armor and EMP devices. The hackers developed software to breach cronies' firewalls. And everyone trained together, knowing that the upcoming fight would test their limits. The night before. As the team finalized their plans, Keanu took a moment to himself, sitting under the stars with the puppy at his side. Its mismatched eyes gleamed in the moonlight, a reminder of the extraordinary stakes they were fighting for. Elena joined him, her expression soft. "You really care about him, don't you?" Keanu scratched behind the puppy's ears. "He didn't choose this life. None of them did. They deserve better." Elena nodded, her voice quiet. "I thought I was powerless when I worked for cronies. But now, seeing all these people, knowing what we're about to do, it gives me hope." Keanu smiled faintly. "Hope's a powerful thing." The infiltration. The night of the mission arrived. Under the cover of darkness, the convoy approached Cronies' headquarters. The towering building was a beacon of power, its sleek design hiding the corruption within. The team split into groups. Keanu led the infiltration team through the maintenance tunnel, while Jessica coordinated the diversionary tactics above ground. The tunnel was narrow and damp, but it led directly to the server room. Keanu's team moved silently, their nerves steeled by the knowledge of what was at stake. When they reached the server room, the scale of Cronies' operation became clear. Rows upon rows of servers hummed with energy, each one a repository of the company's secrets. Jessica's voice crackled over the comms. "We're in position. Distractions underway. You have a small window, make it count." The data purge. Elena and one of the hackers set to work, bypassing the server's security systems. Keanu and Robbie stood guard, their weapons ready as the facility's alarms began to blare. "We've got company," Robbie muttered as guards poured into the room. Keanu sprang into action, his movements swift and precise. Using a mix of hand-to-hand combat and carefully placed shots, he kept the guards at bay while the team worked. "Almost there." Elena shouted, her fingers flying over the keyboard. Just as the final firewall fell, Arthur Voss entered the room, flanked by heavily armed operatives. The final confrontation. Well, Voss said, his tone mocking. The great Keanu Reeves, reduced to a petty thief. Keanu stepped forward, his weapon trained on Voss. "This ends now. Call off your guards and walk away." Voss laughed. "You think you're the hero in this story? You're just a nuisance. You can't stop progress." Elena's voice cut through the tension. "The purge is complete. Everything's gone." Voss's smile vanished. "What?" Jessica's voice crackled over the comms. "The exposé wasn't the end. We just sent every piece of your dirty laundry to global law enforcement. Your empire is crumbling." Voss's fury turned to desperation. "You have no idea what you've done. This isn't just about me, it's bigger than you can imagine." Keanu's voice was calm, but firm. "Then maybe it's time for the world to know." The escape. The team fought their way out of the facility, dodging gunfire and drones as the building descended into chaos. By the time they reached the convoy, the headquarters was ablaze, the flames a symbol of the destruction they had wrought on Cronies' operations. The convoy sped through the night, leaving the burning Cronies Corporation headquarters behind. Inside one of the vehicles, Keanu Reeves sat cradling the puppy, its mismatched eyes peering up at him with an almost human-like understanding. Beside him, Elena stared out the window, her expression a mixture of exhaustion and relief. Jessica's voice crackled over the comms from the lead vehicle. "We've disrupted their operations, but we haven't taken out Cronies entirely. Voss will try to regroup, he won't go down without a fight." Keanu nodded grimly. "We've bought ourselves some time, but we need to figure out our next move." The aftermath. As dawn broke, the convoy reached another safe house, a sprawling, abandoned factory on the outskirts of the city. The group disbanded to rest and regroup, but the sense of urgency lingered. Inside the safe house, Jessica worked furiously on her laptop, coordinating with global allies to ensure the data purge would have maximum impact. "Elena," she called, motioning the former scientist over. We need to talk about the puppy, and subject 7. There's something you haven't told us. Elena hesitated, her gaze flicking to Keanu, who had joined them with the puppy resting in his arms. It's not just intelligence, she admitted. The enhancements, they're evolving. That's why Voss wanted him so badly. He's not just a prototype, he's the key to the next phase of their research. Keanu frowned. What kind of enhancements are we talking about? Elena took a deep breath. Memory retention, emotional intelligence, problem-solving capabilities far beyond normal animals. And possibly communication. Keanu raised an eyebrow. Communication? As in, talking? Elena nodded. Not verbal speech, but something close. With the right training, he could be the bridge between humans and animals. The puppy's potential. As if sensing the attention, the puppy perked up, its tail wagging slightly. Keanu set him on the ground, watching as the tiny creature padded over to a makeshift puzzle Jessica had been using for research. Without hesitation, the puppy began moving the pieces, solving the puzzle with astonishing speed. Jessica's jaw dropped. That wasn't just instinct. Elena nodded. He understands more than we think. He's learning. Keanu crouched beside the puppy, scratching behind its ears. Looks like you're full of surprises, little guy. The counterstrike. Despite the brief respite, the team knew their mission wasn't over. Cronies had been weakened, but Voss was still a threat. Jessica received an encrypted message from one of her sources, a tip that Voss was retreating to a private facility in the mountains, where he was consolidating his resources and preparing to rebuild. This is our chance to finish it, Jessica said, her voice steely. If we take out that facility, we can cut him off for good. Keanu stood, his resolve unwavering. Then let's end this. The final assault. The team prepared for the mission, outfitting their vehicles with armor and weapons. Elena worked with the hackers to develop a plan to disable the facility's defenses, while Maria ensured the dogs would be safely transported away from the fight. Keanu took a moment to address the group. This isn't just about taking down Voss. It's about making sure no one else suffers because of what Cronies has done. We've come this far together, let's finish it. The group erupted in cheers, their determination renewed. The showdown. The facility was perched high in the mountains, surrounded by dense forests and guarded by heavily armed personnel. The convoy approached under the cover of night, splitting into two teams, one to create a diversion and the other to infiltrate the facility. Keanu led the infiltration team, his movements silent and precise as they breached the outer defenses. Inside, they encountered fierce resistance, but the team's training and unity allowed them to push forward. Finally, they reached the control room, where Voss was waiting. The last stand. You're persistent, I'll give you that, Voss said, his calm demeanor masking the fury in his eyes. But this is where it ends. Keanu stepped forward, his voice steady. You're right, it does end here. For you. Voss smirked and pressed a button on a nearby console. The room shook as a countdown appeared on the monitors. What did you do? Jessica demanded. Failsafe, Voss replied smugly. If I go down, so does this entire facility. And everyone in it. Elena frantically scanned the controls. We can override it, but it'll take time. Keanu turned to Jessica. Get everyone out. I'll stay and help Elena. Jessica hesitated, then nodded. Be careful. The puppy's heroics. As Elena worked to disable the failsafe, the puppy tugged at Keanu's pant leg, barking insistently. What is it, buddy? Keanu asked. The puppy darted toward a secondary console, pawing at the controls. Keanu followed, his eyes widening as he realized the puppy was guiding him to a hidden override switch. Smart little guy, Keanu said, pressing the switch. The countdown froze, and the alarm ceased. Elena let out a shaky breath. You did it. He did it. The end of Voss. Voss, realizing his plan had failed, lunged at Keanu in desperation. The two men grappled, their struggle a stark contrast to the stillness of the room. Keanu's training gave him the edge, and with one final blow, he sent Voss crumpling to the floor. It's over, Keanu said. The aftermath. The team evacuated the facility, leaving it to the authorities and allies who had arrived to secure the site. Back at the farm, the group celebrated their victory. The puppy, now a symbol of their fight, played with Subject 7 in the sunlight. What happens now? Elena asked. Keanu smiled, watching the dogs. We rebuild. We protect. And we make sure this never happens again. The morning light streamed across the farm, casting a golden glow over the team's temporary refuge. After the destruction of Cronies Corporation's mountain facility, the team had returned to regroup, reflect, and plan their next steps. The puppy, now affectionately nicknamed Hero by Maria, bounded through the open fields, its mismatched eyes gleaming with newfound energy. Subject 7 followed closely, its once wary demeanor softened by the quiet safety of the farm. Keanu Reeves watched from the porch, a rare smile on his face. I think Hero knows we've won, he said to Jessica, who stood beside him, sipping coffee. Jessica chuckled. He deserves to celebrate. If it weren't for him, we might not have made it out of that facility. The ripple effect. The fallout from Cronies' downfall was monumental. Jessica's exposé had gone viral, bolstered by the data the team had retrieved. Governments, activist organizations, and international watchdogs launched investigations into the corporation and its backers. Voss, captured during the raid, became the face of corporate greed and corruption, his trial drawing global attention. Whistleblowers emboldened by the team's actions came forward, revealing the full extent of Cronies' illegal experiments. People are finally paying attention, Jessica said during one of the team's debriefings. This isn't just about Cronies anymore. It's about changing the way the world views exploitation, of animals, of people, of power. The puppy's legacy. Hero's extraordinary abilities became a beacon of hope and a symbol of what could be achieved when compassion triumphed over greed. Elena, working closely with animal behaviorists and scientists, began studying Hero's enhancements in a controlled, ethical environment. He's more than just intelligent, Elena explained during one of her updates. He understands emotions, communication, and even complex social cues. He's teaching us as much as we're teaching him. Hero's story inspired a global movement advocating for better treatment of animals and stricter regulations on scientific experimentation. Donations poured into animal welfare organizations, and grassroots initiatives sprang up worldwide. The reunion. One evening, as the team gathered around a campfire, a visitor arrived, Robbie, Keanu's old friend from the NYPD. I figured you could use some good news, Robbie said, handing Keanu a file. Inside were photos of the other surviving enhanced animals rescued during the raids. They're being cared for now, Robbie said. Safe, loved, and free from people like Voss. Keanu's smile was bittersweet as he looked at the photos. They deserve a second chance. Just like Hero. The world takes notice. The team's story became the subject of documentaries, books, and even a feature film, though Keanu insisted on staying behind the scenes. It's not about me, he said in an interview. It's about what we accomplished together, and the changes we can make moving forward. Hero's fame skyrocketed, but Keanu worked to ensure the dog's life remained simple and filled with love. He's been through enough, Keanu said. Now it's his turn to just be a dog. The promise. As the weeks turned into months, the team began to go their separate ways, each finding new paths inspired by their shared mission. Jessica continued her investigative journalism, exposing injustices and advocating for systemic change. Elena joined a research initiative dedicated to ethical advancements in animal science. Maria returned to her family, taking Hiro with her, where the puppy became a cherished companion. Keanu, ever humble, returned to his quiet life, though he remained deeply involved in the causes they had fought for. One evening, as the sun set over the farm, Keanu sat on the porch, Hiro curled up at his feet. He looked out at the horizon, a sense of peace washing over him. "We did good, buddy," he said softly, scratching behind Hiro's ears. "But the fight's not over." "Not yet." Hiro let out a soft bark, as if in agreement, and together they watched the stars appear, ready for whatever the future might bring. Stay tuned for the final part, where the team reflects on their journey, and Hiro's story inspires an unforgettable legacy. Send the next part. ChatGPT. Part 14, A Legacy Born. Months after the fall of Cronies Corporation, the world had begun to change. The revelations from Jessica Tran's exposé had sparked international reform. Governments passed stricter laws regulating genetic experimentation, and organizations devoted to ethical science and animal welfare saw an unprecedented surge in support. Hiro, the once-lost puppy who had captured hearts around the world, became a symbol of resilience and hope. His story inspired movements and even found its way into classrooms, where teachers used it to discuss the importance of empathy, integrity, and courage. The farm becomes a sanctuary. Maria, now Hiro's official caretaker, transformed the farm into a sanctuary for rescued animals. Subject 7 had flourished under her care, its scars fading as it embraced a new life surrounded by love and kindness. Elena often visited, bringing new insights from her research into Hiro's unique abilities. "He's teaching us what's possible when intelligence and compassion come together," she said during one visit. "He's not just a product of science, he's a miracle." Keanu Reeves was a frequent visitor as well. Despite his busy schedule, he made time to help at the sanctuary, often arriving unannounced with supplies or simply to spend time with Hiro and the other animals. Jessica's triumph. Jessica's work didn't stop with Cronies. She continued to uncover hidden injustices, using her platform to advocate for change. Hiro's story became the centerpiece of her book, A Hero's Journey, Fighting for Justice in a Broken World. The book became a bestseller, with proceeds donated to the sanctuary and animal rights organizations. During a televised interview, Jessica reflected on the journey. "Hiro reminded us of something we often forget, that even in the darkest times, there's light. You just have to fight for it." Keanu's quiet impact. Keanu, ever modest, declined interviews and accolades, preferring to let the story and its message take center stage. But his involvement didn't go unnoticed. One evening, as he visited the sanctuary, Maria handed him a letter from a young girl who had been inspired by Hiro's story. "Dear Mr. Reeves," it read. "I want to help animals like Hiro when I grow up. Thank you for being a real-life hero, too." Keanu smiled as he folded the letter. "The real Hiro is out there chasing butterflies," he said, nodding toward Hiro, who was bounding through the field with Subject 7. The monument. The sanctuary became a pilgrimage site for people inspired by Hiro's story. Visitors left notes, flowers, and tokens of appreciation, which Maria displayed in a small museum on the property. One day, a local artist unveiled a bronze statue of Hiro, capturing the puppy's spirited gaze and mismatched eyes. It stood at the entrance to the sanctuary, a reminder of the extraordinary journey that had brought so much change. A promise fulfilled. On the anniversary of their victory over Cronies, the team reunited at the sanctuary. Jessica, Elena, Maria, Robbie, and Keanu sat around a bonfire, reflecting on how far they had come. "We didn't just stop Cronies," Jessica said, her voice filled with pride. "We started something bigger. And it's only the beginning." Keanu raised a glass. To Hiro. For reminding us that even the smallest among us can make the biggest difference. The group cheered, their laughter and camaraderie filling the night air. Hiro's journey continues. As the stars appeared overhead, Hiro curled up beside Keanu, letting out a contented sigh. The little puppy had gone from a scared stray to a global icon, his legacy etched in the hearts of everyone who heard his story. Keanu scratched behind Hero's ears, a soft smile on his face. "We've done a lot, buddy. But there's always more to do." Hero barked softly, as if to say, "I'm ready." Stay tuned for the final chapter, where Hero's story inspires a generation and the team's efforts lead to a brighter future for all. Years passed, but the impact of Hero's story only grew. The sanctuary became more than a refuge for rescued animals, it became a beacon of hope, a place where people from all walks of life came to learn about compassion, resilience, and the power of collective action. Keanu Reeves, now grayer but no less determined, often spent his days at the sanctuary. Though he had returned to acting, his heart always seemed to lead him back to this quiet, magical place where Hero and Subject 7 roamed free. Hero's legacy lives on. One sunny afternoon, a group of schoolchildren visited the sanctuary. They squealed with delight as Hero and Subject 7 trotted up to greet them, their tails wagging furiously. "Is this the real Hero?" one boy asked, his eyes wide with wonder. Keanu knelt down, meeting the boy's gaze. "He sure is. And you know what makes him so special?" The children leaned in, captivated. "He never gave up," Keanu said softly. "Even when the odds were against him, Hero kept going. And because of him, so many lives were changed." The children beamed, their admiration for the little dog evident. A new beginning. As the years went on, Hero's story inspired a new generation of advocates, scientists, and storytellers. The sanctuary expanded, welcoming more animals and serving as a hub for education and innovation. Elena's research led to groundbreaking advancements in understanding animal intelligence and emotional connection, forever changing the way the world viewed its furry companions. Jessica continued her fearless journalism, her name synonymous with justice and truth. Her latest series, The Power of One, showcased individuals who had made a difference, each story echoing Hero's extraordinary journey. Maria, now the sanctuary's official director, ensured that Hero's playful spirit and boundless love remained at the heart of everything they did. Keanu's farewell. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the sanctuary in golden light, Keanu stood on the porch with Hero by his side. The little dog, now older but just as spirited, leaned against him, his mismatched eyes reflecting the glow of the setting sun. Keanu looked down at Hero, his voice gentle. "You've done so much, buddy. More than anyone could have imagined. The world's a better place because of you." Hero let out a soft bark, nuzzling Keanu's hand as if to say, "And because of you." As the stars appeared, Keanu sat quietly, Hero curled up at his feet. The sanctuary hummed with life, animals at peace, people laughing, the world continuing to heal. An invitation to reflect. And so, dear listeners, the tale of Hero and Keanu comes to an end, at least for now. But their legacy lives on in every act of kindness, every stand for justice, and every heart inspired by their story. What did you think of their journey? Did it stir something in you, a spark of hope, a desire to act, or simply a smile? If you enjoyed this tale, take a moment to share your thoughts and let Hero's story inspire someone else. After all, even the smallest among us can make the biggest difference. Thank you for joining us on this unforgettable adventure. Until next time, remember, heroes come in all shapes and sizes. Perhaps, there's a little hero in you, too.